How many of you know where's ASEAN? No, you do? Okay, great. No, because we're in Europe, I asked this question because oftentimes a lot of people think ASEAN and ASEAN is the same thing. So, but that's just to clarify that ASEAN is a very vibrant part of the world. It's also very densely populated, and both in terms of people, in terms of flora, fauna, it's one of the most vibrant parts of the world, and that's why I think climate risk is also fairly dominant. So what we're going to do is I'm going to request our two speakers to share their thoughts. They have done extensive work on the field. But then after that, as Emmanuel said, we'll try to have a chat together, both educative, informative, and to see what are the next steps for us to take from here. So I'm going to invite Professor Johan Rockström. He's from the Potsdam Institute of Climate Impact Research. And after that, it'll be Professor Lian who's from the National University of Singapore. So Johan, maybe I begin with you.
Thanks, Pranjal. And what I want to do in a few minutes is just to give you an update on why we can now say with a very high degree of scientific evidence that we need to bring the planetary boundary science across the entire world, and of course, just as Pranjal points out, to one of the most vibrant regions in the world, namely Asia, but not only to do that in terms of the health of the planet, but also in terms of the health of human beings, to have an integrated approach as a lever for accelerating the transformation back to the safe operating space. And I'll come to that. What you have here is the 2025 Planetary Health Check update on the state of the planet. It's actually the best authoritative assessment of the state of the planet we have today. How can I say that? Well, it's because it builds on 15 years of science on identifying the Earth system processes that regulates the stability, the resilience, and the life support on Earth. And not only that, we have for each one of these 9 planetary boundary systems, and they will come as no surprise to anyone here, it's of course the stable climate system, but it's also biodiversity, land system change, the bloodstream of the Earth system, the hydrological cycle, which is behind all life on Earth, but also basically behind all resilience in the Earth system, the biogeochemical cycles of nitrogen and phosphorus, a stable ocean, air pollutants, the stratospheric ozone layer, and the fact that we, since the start of the Great Acceleration and when we entered the Anthropocene in the 1950s, have allowed ourselves to just accumulate the Earth system with persistent organic pollutants, microplastics, nuclear waste, all forms of novel entities that are totally alien to the Earth system and actually alien to our biological functions. 7 of the 9 boundaries, that's what you see here, are outside of the safe operating space. The safe operating space is defined as close as possible to the Holocene interglacial equilibrium that we've been privileged to have since we left the last ice age 18,000 years ago. And that is fundamental because we've been around on planet Earth for 250,000 years as modern humans. I mean, we didn't have this clothes on during that whole period, but we were modern humans physically and intellectually. But we were just a few million people. We lived in caves. We were hunter and gatherers. We lived in deep ice age. 200,000 year long ice ages, one short interglacial, the Eemian, and then we leave the last ice age 18,000 years ago. And as soon as we come into the Holocene, we go through the Neolithic Revolution, we domesticate animals and plants, and bang, we go off on the civilizational journey that takes us to Davos in 2026. That's the short version of the history of humankind on planet Earth. We use that as the reference point for the stable planet. So what you see here is actually a guide for stability and guide for health of all species on planet Earth. When you summarize that down to an integrated health check, and this is a kind of symbolize a blood sample test, because scientifically we can today say with high confidence that we have a sick patient, hopefully not a chronic disease, but definitely a patient which is under tremendous stress, and therefore it is satisfying to bring this patient to the doctor every 7th year, which is what we've been able to do in the cycle, such as the IPCC and the Planetary Boundaries Science Update. We've now set out to bring the planet to the doctor every year on a health check. And the conclusion for the 2025 health check is that, dear Mother Earth, you're outside of your safe, healthy point for all the organs that regulates the stability of the system. Those organs, by the way, are the tipping point systems that we are mapping as an evidence to set this safe boundary. The planet is placed here, which is at the end of the danger zone. That's the uncertainty range in science. So the yellow part here is the further you go to the right, the higher is the likelihood that things can go wrong, but it's still in the uncertainty range. And past this point, and you enter a really high-risk zone, and further to the right, the higher is the scientific confidence that things will irreversibly go wrong, where we can push the whole system drifting away from stable conditions for life support. What does this tell us? It tells us we are in danger. We have a sick patient, but we can still turn things around. The window is still open to get a healthy, manageable, I say manageable future. Now, this state of the planet is already having impacts across the entire world. And in Asia, the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, has mapped this very carefully, as I'm sure you're aware. And the big fat dots here shows, for evidence, agreement, and confidence, the levels of the stress. And we're talking heat waves, urban flooding, biodiversity loss, dust storms, sea level rise, urban heat waves, permafrost thawing, fires. And all of these are increasing in frequency, and they're increasing in magnitude across Asia. So, you know, it's happening across the entire world, but it's definitely verified also for the Asian region. In order to deviate from these impacts becoming even worse and potentially becoming unmanageable, and not only becoming unmanageable, you should be aware that when we transgress boundaries, you have two impacts. One is what you see here, the fast impacts, the fires, the droughts, the heat waves, hitting communities and economies. The slow impacts is the tipping points, that you risk pushing the Greenland ice sheet, the Atlantic overturning of heat in the North Atlantic, the Amazon rainforest, the Congo rainforest, the Southeast Asian monsoon across thresholds where they irreversibly will fall from a healthy state to an unhealthy state that undermines not only human health, but also the stability of the system. And the journey to avoid this is what you see on the screen here. This is the pathway to keep ourselves away from reaching 1.5 degrees Celsius, which is the boundary for climate. It requires phasing out fossil fuels incredibly fast. The pace here, the steepness here, is equivalent to 5% global emission reductions per year. 5% per year from 1st of January 2026. A transformation of the global food system from source to sink, an agricultural revolution. It can be done, but it has to be done. It's also a massive win-win for human health. Scaling carbon dioxide removal technologies to suck out carbon dioxide and greenhouse gases. Secure carbon uptake in ecosystems on land. And securing that the ocean remains a buffer for the whole system. If we do this, we will be at a net zero point by 2050, and it gives us a 50% chance of keeping away from permanently exceeding 1.5. I say this because this proves that even if you focus only on climate, it is a sustainability transformation. All of this is the energy transition, yes, but the food system transition and intact nature are about all the other planetary boundaries. So that's what we're up for. And that's why I'm really exciting in this session to not only connect this to the health of the planet, but also that we're now working so actively with scholars around the world to integrate the human health dimension with the planetary health dimension. And this is a lot of text, but it's just to point you to two papers. One is the work, and Jamila is here, and perhaps colleagues of this paper is here from Sunway University, that have for the first time actually started to conceptually, methodologically map human health impacts of breaching all the planetary boundaries. And this is a really exciting call for action, where we published together with Sam Myers, the president of the Planetary Health Alliance, an effort to call upon scientists around the world to integrate human health with planetary health, to really work together towards a more integrated planetary health agenda. Jamila is leading on that from Malaysia, on for the first time also bringing that science up to the policy level with the new National Planetary Health Action Plan for a whole country. I mean, this is extraordinary as an achievement to really show how science can be put to action to accelerate the pathway to reach that stability point. And with that, I just want to leave you with what is at stake. The global economy must be guided by the safe operating space for humanity on Earth. We need, therefore, transformative solutions that can be scaled, and Pim from National University of Singapore will probably focus very much on the solution space here of how to build resilience, secure habitability, but also the stability of the entire system, because that in the end will enable local development wherever we are on the planet, whether we're in Davos or whether we are somewhere in Asia, to be possible. And with that, looking forward to bring us to the next part of this session. Thanks.
I have a media background for several decades, not several, just 3 actually. But the point is that when we talk about climate change, it's the argument is that consumers must change their behavior. We have to change our lifestyle and everything. So it's one-way call for change. But the reverse connection, that if things go bad, it's going to hit us back again, that connection is not made loud enough.
No.
So I think what you're saying is quite profound in that sense, that I think we need a larger conversation and a much bigger global debate, saying that if you're hurting the environment is going to hurt you too. And that's what's going to perhaps drive some change in behavior. Otherwise, you say, well, climate change is somebody else's problem. It's not my problem. But I think that's a great point to build over the next few days and months to come.
So my name is Lian Pin. I am a professor of conservation science at the National University of Singapore. At the National University of Singapore, I also lead the Center for Nature-Based Climate Solutions. So that's my main area of focus, trying to figure out understand how we can leverage nature to address climate change impacts. So in Southeast Asia, we have this unique feature in that the region is a very archipelagic region. We have lots of islands, so lots of coastlines, which makes us particularly vulnerable to climate change impacts. As we all know, sea levels are rising, and where there are lots of coastlines, the communities living around those coastlines are most vulnerable to the impacts of sea level change. At the same time, Southeast Asia is also a region undergoing tremendous economic growth. So there's also a lot of pressure on the land, pressure to develop. And so we are sort of caught between the need for economic development and the need to continue to protect our vulnerable ecosystems, our environment. And I think this is where nature-based climate solutions can play an important role. When Johan and I met a couple of times last year, we talked about how the region could benefit from coming together with colleagues like Jamila from Sunway, but also the bigger network of the other universities in the region, other researchers and other stakeholders in the region to come together to try to understand the impacts of transgressing the global tipping points and how that will impact on the region. And more importantly, what kinds of solutions we could try to develop. And of course, nature-based solutions would be one of them, but there will be many more. And the other important aspect of having a sort of a hub or a network in the region or for the region that deals with planetary boundary science and solutions is to also be able to activate the resources in the region to help support this work. So that's what Johan and I are trying to do. We just started. We signed an MOU between Johan's Institute, the PEAK, and NUS last year in December. And so we are just at the very early stages of moving this forward. So with that, I think I will stop here.